Hello! Bumabati po ako na isang magandang araw sa inyo lahat. Welcoming you to Bread of Life GenSan Sunday online streaming. Kung saan man po kayo nanonood, please indicate nyo po anong lugar. And also, we'd like to encourage you to share our link sa ilang mga tao po na sa tingin nyo po maaring matulungan po ng ating broadcast ngayon. And of course, we will highly appreciate if you could write down some comments along the way ng ating pong streaming. We're continuing our study on the message entitled Managing Your Ego. No? Galing po primarily sa libro po ni Ryan Holiday, Ego is the Enemy. And we've looked so far po, yung part 1 po ng libro na ito o ng ating pong pag-aaral ay makita po natin aspire. Ang naging theme po nung portion na yan is humble in our aspirations. Sa paghahangad natin sa ating buhay, yun ang napakahalaga ng humility. Although, ang kabuuan naman talaga mensahe ng librong ito is really about humility rin. So, tayo po ay magpatuloy sa pangalawang bahagi po ng libro na to, which is success. Ang theme naman po ng portion na to ay gracious in our success. No? So, pangalawa na pong pag-aaral natin ito. Sabi po ni Robert Louis Stevenson, no? The man is a success who has lived well, laughed often, and loved much, who has gained the respect of intelligent men and the love of children, who has filled his niche and accomplished his task, who leaves the world better than he found it, whether by an improved puppy, a perfect poem, or a rescued soul, who never lacked appreciation of earth's beauty or failed to express it, who looked for the best in others and gave the best he had. Kadalasan po, hanggang dyan po ang quotation na ito, ng poem na to. Pero meron pong last portion yan, banggitin ko na lang po, whose life is an inspiration, whose memory a benediction. Napakaganda pong discussion, kumbaga, about what success is all about ni Robert Stevenson. Ano? Kaya kayo po, no? Write down, ano po sa inyo, para sa inyo ang success? Kung kayo po ang magde-define ng success, how would you define it? No? Kanya-kanya po tayong probably kumbaga definition or concept of what success is. No? Now, as we go to Ryan Holiday's book, Ego is the Enemy, after aspiration po, ito pong sinulat niya. We know where we want to end up. No? Pagkatapos ng aspiration, gusto mo mag-end up in success. We want to matter. Wealth and recognition and reputation are nice too. We want it all. The problem is that we're not sure that humility can get us there. Di ba? Para bang madadala ba ako ng humility sa aking pag-asenso? Tayo po ay natatakot sa pag-concept po ng humility as if kung tayo man ay humble, we will end up subjugated, trodden on, embarrassed, and irrelevant. Akala natin yun ang konsepto kapag humble ka, apakapakan ka, hindi ka angat, hindi ka asenso sa buhay. No? Pagka ikaw ay nagpakababa. Which is of course maling pananaw po yun. Which is Jesus said, di ba, whoever humbles himself will be exalted. No? The one who exalts himself will be the one to be humbled. So kaya kung kay Jesus lang, yun ang konsepto ng success. Continuing sa book, who wants to look at themselves and their work and find that it does not measure up? And so here we might bluster our way through, cover up hard truths with sheer force of personality and drive and passion. Or we can face our shortcomings honestly and put the time in. We can let this humble us. We see clearly where we are talented and where we need to improve, and then put in the work to bridge that gap. And we can set upon positive habits that will last a lifetime. Kung mga mamimili ka, will you apply humility? Or will you apply ego or pride, no? Sa iyong pag-angat, sa iyong aspiration na umasenso sa buhay. I'm jumping to another portion. You have a chance to do this yourself. Sulat ni Ryan, to play a different game, to be utterly audacious or daring in your aims. Because what comes next is going to test you in ways that you cannot begin to understand. For ego is a wicked sister of success. Of course, may tamang ego, may tamang pride, alam natin ho yun. Ang dinidiscuss dito ni Ryan na maling ego, yung opposite talaga ng humility. Kaya sinulat niya, for everything that comes next, ego is the enemy. Pagkatapos ng iyong aspiration sa buhay, ang mga susunod na niyan, most especially sa iyong pag-asenso sa iyong buhay, ego pa rin ang iyong kalaban diyan. Yung maling pride. Darren Paul Johnson, former English politician, wrote, anytime there is a struggle between doing what is actually right and doing what seems right, then your ego is interfering with your decision. No, kapag ka nag-struggle ka dyan na sa yung alam mo naman tama, sa yung akala mukha lang tama, no, then talagang andyan ang ego, humahad lang sa'yo. Kasi kung hindi ego, alam mo, dahil tama, yun ang iyong gagawin. Continuing, here we are at the top of a mountain we work hard to climb. Or at least the summit is in sight. Now we face new temptations and problems. The question, sinulat ni Ryan, why is success so ephemeral or lasting for a very short period? No? Bakit mabilis ang success, matapos, Ang sagot niya, ego shortens it. Pinapatigil ng ego ang iyong tagumpay sa buhay. Whether a collapse is dramatic or a slow erosion, it's always possible and often unnecessary. We stop learning. Bakit tayo bumabagsak? We stop listening and we lose our grasp on what matters. We become victims of ourselves and the competition. Sobriety, open-mindedness, organization, and purpose, these are the great stabilizers. Kaya dalawang bahagi, kaya mabilis ang pagbaksak galing sa tagumpay dahil dun sa mga biktima tayo ng competition, ayaw natin matuto, ayaw natin mag-aral, ayaw na natin makinig. But meron din namang stabilizers para manatili ang tagumpay. So, they balance out the ego and pride that comes with achievement and recognition. So, yun po ang ating aalamin sa araw na to. O simula sa ating pag-aaral na to ng second portion, at paano natin mababalanse ang ego? Dahil andyan yan. Kalaki palagi yan in the midst of our achievement and recognition. Allow me to give to you the first video. It's a video of an interview with actually apat itong mga Indian actors dito, no. And yung portion lang nakausap yung si Sanjay Dutt, Sanjay Dutt is an Indian actor who works in Hindi films. He is the recipient of several awards including 2 Filmfare Awards and 3 Screen Awards. Kumbaga magaling na aktor ito. So, yung interviewer, ito ay, kumbaga, in-emphasize, portion na to ng video na to, mayroong tinanong tungkol dito kay Sanjay Dutt. And so, panoorin natin and then we will just add some more insights into it.
Sanjay sir, in your years, the many, many years you've put in the cinema, I'm sure a plethora of movies have been offered to you. And have you ever, in a narration, read a script and a character and felt like this character is so suitable for another actor that you know, and maybe for the greater good of the movie, suggested that to the filmmaker that, you know what, this is a great film, but maybe this person is a better person to play the part?
That's such a...
To be honest, this never happened to me, and it's a good one. Yeah, I've learned something from you.
Thank you, sir.
That if that ever happens, I will definitely do that.
Yeah, it's never happened. No. A lot of people that I ask this say, no, we are selfish. We don't suggest names, we just grab the opportunity. But that's great that you say, I'm going to do that in the future.
I will.
I had never met you before, but when you walked in, I said, oh my God, he's such a humble man. How do you do that? in a career where everybody's looked at you as a superstar, years after, I look at you and you're so humble. How?
I think with every success you have to be more grounded, and that's
Wow,
what my
yeah.
parents have taught me. When you start flying high, you fall harder.
That's so true.
You,
That is so
you,
true. Yeah.
you get your feet on the ground and there's nothing. I mean, people love you, they adore you. It's because of them is what we are. Because they watch us, they watch our movies.
Right.
So you got to be humble, I think.
Okay, you will notice, ang tanong kumbaga, gulat yung interviewer, no? Bakit ang humble mo? No? Bakit sa mga tao nakikita ko, no, bakit kakaiba ka? No? Kaya, di ba, tinanong siya, kung sakasakali ba na yung pagtingin mo na script na merong mas magaling na pwedeng maging aktor niyan, ibibigay mo ba? Ang ganda ng sagot ni Sanjay. Sabi niya, to be honest, it never happened to me. But it's a good one. I have learned something from you. Matanda na ito. Marami ng experience sa buhay. Kumbaga, willing to listen to a younger person na nag-interview sa kanya. Salamat. Meron akong natutukan sa'yo. Kaya lalong namangha yung interviewer kasi sa ibang mga, kumbaga interviewer niya, mga selfish yun. Hindi, bakit nila ibibigay? Sayang yung opportunity. No? Para kay Sanjay, okay lang kung meron mas magandang magiging actor para doon sa script na yun, okay lang, ibibigay niya. So kaya sabi nung di ba, I have never met you pero grabe kakaiba ka, you're such a humble person. Bakit ka humble? Ang sabi nito ni Sanjay, I think with every success, you have to be more grounded. Balik ka sa lupa. Huwag kang masyado mataas sa ere. Huwag masyado malaki ang tenga. Huwag mong na parang hindi ka na maabot. Kumbaga. No? And ang ganda pa ng kadoktor niya dito, and that's what my parents have taught me. Yan ang tinuro sa akin. You start flying high, you fall harder. Di ba? Totoo naman Pas mataas na ang lipad mo, mas malalim ang baksak. That's why you get your feet on the ground. Balik ka lang. No? Stay on the ground. Don't try to think na sobra ka ng angat na hindi ka na maabot ng mga tao. So kaya hindi, sabi niya, makababa ka lang. Grabe siguro kaya magaling pa rin siya. I'm not really familiar with this actor, but somehow, grabe doon sa interview na to, lumalabas yung kanyang kababaan. Nasabi niya, para bang we owe them to the people na nanonood sa amin, kaya you've got to be humble. No? Kaya sa ating success, no, para hindi tayo masira ng ego, we need to be humble. We need to stay on the ground. Let our feet stay on the ground. So, we need to somehow define success as si Robert Stevenson siya nagbigay na siya pero how more should we define success? Is having a big bank account a concept of success? Is having a name, being familiar or famous or fame or being an athlete, an accomplished person, is that what it means to be successful? Di ba? Ang dami, hindi. Kung bakit yung mga supposed to be mga successful tao, bakit sila nagpapakamatay? Di ba? Kilalang kilala sila, dami nilang pera, wealthy, masyado. Pero bakit, kumbaga sila, nawawala ng pag-asa sa buhay? Bakit nawalan na sila ng gana sa buhay at pinili na lang nila magpakamatay kung supposed to be successful sila? That's why we need to have a different definition of what success is compared to what the world looks at success. That's why when you once again, when we are reminded of what Jesus said, whoever exalts himself, will be put down. But who humbles himself will be exalted. Adam Christing, an American comedian, author, and motivational speaker. Founder siya and president ng Clean Comedians dahil parang sila na pwede ka rin maging comedian na hindi ka gumagamit ng profanity. So malinis na comedian ito. Itong sabi niya, whenever I go to those motivational success seminars, I am amazed at all the people who drive up in new Mercedes and BMWs. How much more success does a person need? Oh, kumbaga nagtataka siya, ang gagara na ng mga sasakyan nyo. Bakit pa kayo kailangan, kumbaga, umaaten ng success seminars? Gaano pa bang success ang kailangan ninyo? So, meaning, hindi talaga sa material na bagay na define ang success ng tao. Hindi talaga nababase sa kung kilala ba siya o sa mga accomplishments lang ba niya na define ang kanyang success. Kundi talaga nasa sa loob pag ating titingnan niya mabuti. Allow me to give you another book. I've shared this in some of my preachings. The book's The Second Mountain by David Brooks. Allow me in the portion of introduction, allow me to read some portions ng kanyang And so he was sharing in a sense kung ano yung mga klase ng mga tao na parang climbing the two mountains, kumbaga. Ito pong pagkasulat niya. I often find that their life has what I think of as a two mountain shape. Dalawang klaseng bundok, ang lakbayin ng mga somehow umangat sa buhay. They got out of school, began their career or started a family, and identified the mountain they thought they were going to climb, or they meant to climb. I'm going to be a cop, yun ang akala niba. I'm going to be a doctor, an entrepreneur, what you have, or what have you, kumbaga, kanya-kanya yun, kumbaga, yun yung unang mountain. On the first mountain, we all have to perform certain life tasks, establish an identity, separate from our parents, cultivate our talents, build a secure ego, and try to make a mark in the world. People climbing that first mountain spend a lot of time thinking about reputation management. Sa pag-angat sa first mountain, yun ang kadalasan daw pinag-iisipan ng mga tao, reputasyon. They're always keeping score. How do I measure up? Where do I rank? And at that stage, we have a tendency to think I am what the world says I am. Kaya reputasyon I am dahil kung anong pagkasabi, anong tingin ng mga tao sa akin. The goal on that first mountain, pagkasulat ni Brooks, David Brooks, the goal of that first mountain are the normal goals that our culture endorses. To be a success, to be well thought of, to get invited into the right social circles, and to experience personal happiness. It's all the normal stuff. Nice home, nice family, nice vacations, good food, good friends, and so on. Hindi naman in itself masama po yun. Kaya nga ho natin tinatalakay ang success, Hindi ho masamang umasenso sa buhay, magkaroon ng tagumpay sa buhay. Kaya lang, kaya ito dinidifferentiate o kinakategorize ni David Brooks na ito yung first mountain yun. In itself, hindi naman masama yun. Look at what he wrote. Some people get to the top of the first mountain, taste success, and find it unsatisfying. Is this all there is? They wonder. Yun, pag umangat ka na-climb mo na yung mountain of success mo, pagdating mo doon sa tugatog na yun, bigla ka mag-isip, is this all there is? Ito lang ba? Lahat ng pinag-arapan ko, lahat ng mga challenges, lahat ng kumbaga, in-aspire ko, kumbaga, ito lang ba yun? Bakit? Kulang yung first mountain When they were on their first mountain, their ego had some vision of what it was shooting for, some vision of prominence, pleasure, and success. They realized the desires of the ego are never going to satisfy the deep regions they have discovered in themselves. Yung yung desire na yun for accumulation, for recognition, for reputation, hindi ultimately ka mabibigyan ng fulfillment eh. Kaya dito papasok yung the second mountain. The second mountain is not the opposite of the first mountain. To climb it doesn't mean rejecting the first mountain. It's the journey after it. It's the more generous and satisfying phase of life. Yun yung second mountain. Kaya lang para sa akin po, dinagdagan natin ng third mountain, which is spirituality. Kaya nga, tatlong S po yan. First mountain is the mountain of success. Second mountain is the mountain of significance. And the third mountain, the most important one, is the mountain of spirituality. It's our connection with God. That's why George MacDonald, the Scottish author and minister, said, "In whatever man does without God, he must fail miserably or succeed more miserably." No, kaya pag wala ang Diyos, either failure or success, it will be miserable. Kaya kung first mountain ka lang, no, na-attain mo nga yun, hindi namang masama ma-acquire yung mga bagay na yun. Kaya lang, is this all there is? Pag-akit mo ng second mountain, maganda, significance kasi may connection na sa mga tao, pero kulang pa rin. Napaka-importante lahat, lahat yun ay pumapailalim, kumbaga, sa spirituality. John Huston has written his friend Myrtle's name next to Psalm 30 in his Bible. This psalm declares in part, "O Lord, my God, I called to you for help and you healed me. O Lord, you brought me up from the grave. You spared me from going down into the pit." No, kaibigan niya, kaya sinulat niya para itong kanyang panalangin doon sa kaibigan niya si Myrtle. After a hard-fought battle against cancer, Myrtle died. No? Namatay pa rin. So, pagkatapos isulat ni Myrtle, actually yun, in-underline niya yun sa Bible niya, namatay din siya. Myrtle was not a success story of miraculous healing. No? Kung bakit titignan mo, hindi successful yun dahil namatay eh. No? Nevertheless, itong ganda ng storya. In Houston's opinion, she experienced true success. Why? Bakit? Ano sabi ni John Huston? At her funeral service, instead of bank of flowers, there were groups of people who had witnessed her love of God. One group was there because they had all discovered faith in Jesus through the way she lived, no? Kung paano namuhay si Myrtle. Another group was thankful for her teaching in a Bible class. Another group remembered how she had shown hospitality. Still others were there because they had seen her transcendent spirit as she fought her long, painful illness. Kaya, namatay siya seemingly hindi successful, pero successful. The true success story in each of our lives is our coming into a relationship with God who intervenes in our lives, helping us to overcome with His Word, the Bible, changing our attitudes, transforming us into people with whom He desires to live forever. Kaya, yung presensya ng Diyos sa ating buhay, yun yung kumbaga, kaya nga at home tayo doon, yun ang ating success sa buhay. No? Napakaganda rin ng kwento ni David Brooks in relation to the second mountain. In their book, Practical Wisdom, psychologist Barry Schwartz and political scientist Kenneth Sharp tell a story of a hospital janitor named Luke. Sa isang janitor, in the hospital where Luke worked, there was a young man who had gotten into a fight and was now in a coma. And he wasn't coming out. Mukhang talagang hindi na magigising yung bata. Every day, yung father nitong young man na to sat by his side and in silent vigil and had done so for 6 months, 6 na buwan na. You could imagine the pain, the difficulty, the sadness na dinadaanan ng tatay, 6 na buwan na eh. Hindi pa nagigising. Nakoma yung anak. One day, Luke came in and cleaned the young man's room. His father wasn't there. Wala yung tatay. He was out getting a smoke. Later that day, Luke ran into the father in the hallway. The father snapped at Luke and accused him of not cleaning his son's room. No? Kumbaga, nagalit yung tayo, hindi mo nilinis yung kwarto. The first mountain response, kung ang first mountain response ka lang, itong pagkasulat ni David Brooks, is to see your job as cleaning rooms. Kung first mountain mentality ka lang, ang trabaho mo, hindi, maglinis lang ng room, janitor ka eh. Pwede niya sinabi sana, nilyok doon sa tatay, I did clean your son's room. It was just that you were out smoking. Wala ka, hindi mo ako nakita. Yun yung first mountain response. But the second mountain response is this, to see your job as serving patients and their families. Hindi ka lang nagmamap, hindi ka lang nagwawalis, hindi ka lang naglilinis ng room. Bahagi ka sa pagsilbi sa mga pasyente at ang mga tao nagbabantay doon sa pasyente. Kung yun ang mentality mo sa iyong trabaho, nasa second mountain ka. No? Yun yung ine-emphasize ni David Brooks. It is to meet their needs at a time of crisis. And that response, this man needs comfort, clean the room again. Kaya ang pananaw ni Luke, kinakailangan ng mama. Siyempre, bigat na dinadaanan niya. 6 na buwan na hindi nagigising yung anak niya eh. So, kailangan niyang intindihin. Kailangan intindihin ni Luke kahit pagod na siya, kahit kumbaga sinigawan siya, linis niya ulit. And that's what Luke did. And sa interview later, itong pagkasabi ni Luke, I clean it so that he could see me cleaning it. I can understand how he could be. It was like 6 months that his son was there. He had been a little frustrated, and I cleaned it again. But I wasn't angry with him. I guess I could understand. Kaya, yun yung yun yung kakaiba ng first mountain response, first mountain success, and second mountain significance. Continuing si David Brooks, that's the crucial way to tell whether you are on your first or second mountain. Where is your ultimate appeal? To self or to something outside of self? Look at that, no? Where is your ultimate appeal? Yun ang crucial way para nasaan ka ba? First or second mountain? If the first mountain is about building up the ego and defining the self, the second mountain is about shedding the ego and losing the self. If the first mountain is about acquisition, the second mountain is about contribution. If the first mountain is elitist or exclusive, moving up, the second mountain is egalitarian or being open, being democratic, planting yourself and amid those who need and walking arm in arm with them. Grabe, ang ganda rin ng libro. If you have a chance to read that book, Second Mountain by David Brooks, let me show you what he wrote. You don't climb the second mountain the way you climb the first mountain. You conquer your first mountain. You are conquered by your second mountain. Ang ganda-ganda ng libro. Ang ganda-ganda ng pananaw. So, ang tanong nasaan po tayo? Are we in the first mountain or are we in the second mountain? Would you like to write a comment on that? Or, kumbaga, na may first mountain ka, pero lumalakbay ka rin sa second mountain, parang balik-balik, parang ganoon, You're still finding your success, pero kahit papano, you're also in the second mountain. No? And of course, under that, all over that, is the third mountain. Kaya, ito po ang concept dito, to whatever success you have achieved, ego is the enemy. Ibig sabihin, mag-ingat tayo. May tamang pride again, May tamang, I'm proud of what I'm doing. I'm proud of doing, kumbaga, somehow, things that would help other people. I'm proud of accomplishments of my kids. Di ba? Parang okay naman yun Pero yung nawawala yung essence ng humility at naiisip natin lang ang sarili natin, ang galing natin, wala tayong pakialam sa iba, then yun ang kaaway natin. That's why the book of Proverbs in 29:23 reads, a person's pride will bring him low, but a humble spirit will obtain honor. Yun yung first mountain and second mountain. And so, we will go back to Ryan Holiday. At ang isang major example na ating titiknan ay si Howard Hughes, Jr. actually pala. At a business meeting in January 1924, Howard Hughes, Sr., bali yung tatay, the successful inventor and tool magnate, stood up, convulsed, and died from a sudden heart attack at the age of 54. Bata pa. His son, a quiet, reserved, and sheltered boy of just 18, inherited 3/4 of the private company which held patents and leases critical to oil drilling worth nearly $1 million. Parang sa ngayon, parang ay, $1 million lang. Hindi, 1924 pa yan. Among others, kumbaga, kumbaga among sa naiwan sa kanya, ang laki-laking pera po during that time yon. Various family members were bequeathed, the same, the remaining shares. In a move of almost incomprehensible foresight, the young Howard Hughes Jr., ito na si Howard Hughes na mas kilalang Howard Hughes lang, who many saw as a spoiled little boy, made the decision to buy out his relatives and control the entire company himself. Eto na, makikita mo yung karakter ng bata. Against their objections and still legally considered a minor, Hughes leveraged his personal assets and nearly all the company's funds to purchase the stock, and in doing so, consolidated ownership of a business that would create billions of dollars of cash profit over the next century. Grabe, laking pera. Inacquire niya, sinolo niya. It was a bold move for a young man with essentially zero experience in business. And it was with similar boldness that over his career, he would create one of the most embarrassing, wasteful, and dishonest business track records in history. In retrospect, his years at the helm of the Hughes empire resemble a deranged crime spree more than a capitalistic enterprise. Kaya, some people would look at Howard Hughes as a success because of acquiring many things in life. Yung klase ng lifestyle niya. Pero dito po kaya napaka-importante yung definition ng success eh. Ano ang pagka-define natin ng success? Anong pananaw natin ng success? Continuing sa libro, one cannot argue whether Hughes was gifted, visionary, and brilliant. He just was. Magaling talaga siya. Literally a mechanical genius. He was also one of the best and bravest pilots in the pioneer days of aviation. And as a businessman and filmmaker, he had the ability to predict wide and sweeping changes that came to transform not just the industries he was involved in, but America itself. Magaling sana itong bata na to. Yet, after filtering out his acumen from the legend, glamour, and self-promotion at which he was so adept, only one image remains, an egomaniac who evaporated hundreds of millions of dollars of his own wealth and met a miserable, pathetic end. Not by accident, not because he was beset by unforeseen circumstances or competition, but almost exclusively due to his own actions. Siya may kagagawa ng kanyang pagkabaksak. Kaya grabe, ang taas ng inangat, ang lalim din ng binaksak. That's why, going back to Proverbs, now in chapter 16, verse 18, pride comes before destruction and an arrogant spirit before a fall. Grabe, ang turo ng Bible. Patungkol sa pride, patungkol sa arrogance, patungkol sa tamang paraan ng pag-succeed sa buhay. That's why somebody wrote, success humbles the great man, astonishes the common man, and puffs up the little man. Yun ang pwede magawa ng success eh. Kaya kapag ka hindi ayos ang puso ng tao, bigyan mo ng immediate success, bigyan mo ng napakalaking kwarta, ng napakataas na posisyon, ng napakabantayog, kumbaga na fame and accolade and prosperity, pwede masira ang tao. Continuing kay sa sulat ni Ryan Holiday, or prior to that, do you know, of people like that? Do you understand itong concept po na pwede sa pag-angat, no? Yung pride po natin can really pull us down eh. Continuing, a quick rundown of his feats, if you can call them, na provides a stark perspective. After purchasing control of his father's tool company from his family, Howard abandoned it almost immediately except to repeatedly siphon off its cash. Iniwan niya yung negosyo, pero hinuhututan niya kumbaga ng pera. He left Houston and never stepped foot in the company's headquarters again. He moved to Los Angeles where he decided to become a film producer and celebrity. Trading stocks from his bedside, he lost more than $8 million in the market leading up to the Great Depression. His most well-known movie, Hells Angels, took 3 years to make, lost $1.5 million on a budget of $4.2 million, and nearly bankrupted the tool company in the process. Grabe ang ginastos niya. Ang laki-laki, ilang milyon yun during that time. In the 1920s, probably. Grabe yun. Late 1920s o 1930s, grabing halaga niyan. Halos mabankrupt ang kanyang kumpanya. Then not having learned the lesson the first time, Howard lost another $4 million on Chrysler stock in early 1930s. He then put all aside to enter the aviation business, creating a defense contractor called Hughes Aircraft Company. Despite some astounding personal achievements as an inventor, Howard's company was a failure. His 2 contracts during World War II worth $40 million were massive failures at the expense of the American taxpayer and himself. The most notable, the Spruce Goose, which Hughes called the Hercules, which was one of the biggest planes ever made, took more than 5 years to develop, cost roughly $20 million, and flew just a single time for barely a minute, only 70 feet above the water. Grabe. Binabanggit ko lang po kasi napakalaga makita natin yung dinaanan nitong tao na to eh. At his insistence and expense, gastos niya, yung aircraft na yun, yung Hercules na yun, sat in an air-conditioned hangar in Long Beach for decades at the cost of $1 million a year. Deciding to double down on the film business, Howard purchased the movie studio RKO and produced losses of over $20 million. He went on from 2,000 employees to fewer than 500. Talagang naraming nawalan ng trabaho. Tiring of this business as he had of the tool company, he forsook defense contracting and handed it off to executives to run, where it slowly began to thrive because of his absence. Yung mga buti pa yung mga empleyado niya, napaangat yung kumpanya ulit. It would make no sense. It would make sense to stop here to avoid belaboring the issue. But ang pagkasulat ni Ryan ganda, but that would risk keeping Howard's egregious or shocking tax fraud. The plane crashes, the fatal car accidents, the millions he wasted on private investigators, lawyers, contracts for starlets he refused to let up, property he never lived in, the fact that the only thing that got him to behave responsibly was the threat of public exposure, the paranoia, racism, and bullying, the failed marriages, the drug addiction, and dozens of other ventures and businesses he mismanaged. Hindi mo lang madetalye lahat, pero grabe yung pinagkabaksakan nitong tao na to. Kaya sabi ni Charles Koch, a CEO, businessman na to, American, sabi niya, success is one of the worst enemies of success because success tends to breed complacency and lack of humility. Kaya ingat sa success eh. Ingat every time God, kahit kung saan man tayo mailagay ng Diyos, kung hayaan man ng Diyos umangat ang ating buhay, mag-succeed man tayo sa isang bagay, ingat tayo. Dahil delikadong buhay natin. sinulat ni Ryan, Joan Didion wrote that we have made a hero out of Howard Hughes tells us something interesting about ourselves. Kung ginawa mong hero si Howard, ang may problema ikaw din. No, for Howard, despite his reputation, was quite possibly one of the worst businessmen of the 20th century. Usually, a bad businessman fails and ceases to be in business anymore, making it hard to see what truly caused his failures. But thanks to the steady chains of profits from his father's company, which he found too boring to interfere with, Howard was able to stay afloat, allowing us to see the damage that his ego repeatedly wrought to himself as a person, to the people around him, to what he wanted to accomplish. Grabe, dahil kumikita pa yung kumpanya kahit hindi siya nagmamanage, kaya nanatili pa siya, ang dami pa niyang kasiraan na gawa. That's why Romans chapter 12 verse 16, Paul wrote, live in harmony with one another. Do not be proud, but be willing to associate with people of low position. Do not be conceited. Old Testament, New Testament, Hebrew Scriptures, the Christian Scriptures, lagi ang tindi ng pag-uusap, kumbaga, katuruan regarding pride. Danny Thomas, an American philanthropist, producer, singer, success has nothing to do with what you gain in life or accomplish for yourself. It's what you do for others. Kaya again, what's your definition of success? You may be willing to write it down. Anong definition mo ng success? Allow me to share with you another video by Simon Sinek this time. Success, he was being interviewed by Larry King. And the question asked of him was, how do you define success? And so Simon Sinek responded. Let's watch the video.
So how do you define success?
I think success is seeing those around you work to their natural best and creating momentum for a vision, towards a vision that will last beyond yourself.
So a guy is driving a bus for 20 years, got to retire. He's on Madison Avenue in New York, packed every day as people getting on that bus and getting off. He has 2 kids, a wife, lives in Queens. He might call himself successful. Another guy might be vice president of that company who would call himself unsuccessful. So is success what you make of it?
So the success is defined. Success is a feeling. It's not a series of check marks and goals. I think people define success as finish lines. I ran a marathon, I'm successful. The question is, A, why did you run the marathon? And what happens after you've completed the marathon? Do you just keep running marathons? What happens if you break your leg and you can no longer run marathons? A lot of people set financial goals. I'm successful when I make my first million. Okay, now I have to make my second million. Success is a feeling, and it's the feeling of contribution. So your bus driver in Queens, if he has decided that his job as a bus driver is to ensure that everyone who gets on his bus feels better about themselves because they got on his bus and not another bus. And so he greets them with a smile, he says good morning, he says goodbye, that people will remember that ride that they took with him, versus this vice president of the company who's made it about himself and his financial goals. He's the one who's unhappy, as opposed to seeing those around him succeed and those around him go home with a love of their day, because they come to work in his company every day. So I still believe success and good leadership are about service to others.
Ang ganda ng pagka-handle ni Simon Sinek once again. Nung tinanong siya, how do you define success? Sabi niya, to repeat, I think success is seeing those around you work to their natural best and creating momentum for a vision towards a vision that will last beyond yourself. Kaya, ang konsepto ng success ay hindi para sa sarili lang eh. Hindi lang para sa first mountain lang eh. Kailangan meron kang second mountain eh. Kaya nagbigay ng analogy si Larry King, di ba? So, yung bus driver na kinukonsider niya successful siya, No, mas better pa siya kaysa sa isang vice president ng kumpanya nung driver na yon na ang feeling niya unsuccessful siya. Ang sagot ni Simon, kasi ang definition ng success Somehow, kay Simon sabi niya, success is a feeling. It is not a series of check marks and goals. I think people define success as finish lines No, kaya nga 'di ba parang marathon akala 'di ba pagka nakatapos ka ng marathon, successful ka na. No? Papaano? No? Paano yung susunod na marathon? Paano pagka hindi nabalda ka sa susunod na marathon? No, kaya for Simon, success is a feeling and it's the feeling of contribution. No, kaya tama, it's not about self. Kaya Paul wrote, live in harmony with others. Kaya Paul wrote do not be conceited. Be willing to associate with people of low position. It's not about us alone. It's about thinking other people as well. Kaya yun ang konsepto ni Kaya sabi ni doon sa yung bus driver, ang explanation ni Simon, successful siya dahil binabati niya yung mga tao, ngimingiti siya. Nagsasabi siyang good morning, sasabi siya ng goodbye. Kumbaga, allowing people remember that ride that they took with him. Kesa yung vice president na iniisip lang niya sarili niya, yung kanyang financial goals para sa sarili niya. Kaya, successful yung bus driver. Kasi, ang kanyang sarili, hindi lang yung, okay, trabaho ko to, kumita ako para sa pamilya ko. Hindi, para pasayihin niya. Bilang bus driver, kahit papano, nagkaroon siya ng effect o meron siya nagawa para sa mga tao. No? Kaya sabi niya, I still believe success and good leadership are about service to others. Kaya balik na naman sa paninilbihan. Kukonekta na naman. Kaya second mountain Hindi yung, is this all there is? First mountain. It's, contributing to other people. Stuart Wilde, a British writer, said or wrote, the secret to success is to subjugate your ego and serve others. Kaya, would you like to write down some comments on somehow na-experience mo yan? Na talaga ma-consider mo successful ka sa iyong buhay. Somehow because you allow yourself to be used by God. Continuing sa kwento ni Ryan Holiday, there is a scene from Howard's slow descent into madness that bears illustrating. His biographers have him sitting naked in his favorite white chair, unwashed, unkempt, working around the clock to battle lawyers, investigators, investors in an attempt to save his empire and to hide his shameful secrets. 1 minute he would dictate some irrational multi-page memo about clinics, food preparation, or how employees should not speak to him directly, and then he would turn around and seize upon a genuinely brilliant strategy to outrun his creditors and enemies. Grabe yung kumbaga utak na nitong tao na to. Kumbaga, grabe yung image na portray niya. If someone was looking for a flesh and blood metaphor for ego and destruction, it would be hard to do better than this image of a man working furiously with one hand toward a goal and another working equally hard to undermine it. Kaya ang weird Inaayos mo tong isang bagay na to, pero meron ka rin ginagawa para sirain ito. Weird ang buhay ni Howard. Pero itong dagdag ni Ryan, Howard Hughes, like all of us, was not completely crazy or completely sane. His ego fueled and exacerbated by physical injuries, mostly from plane and car crashes for which he was at fault, and various addictions led him into a darkness that we can scarcely comprehend. Grabe, kaya biglang naging recluse yun. Nagbiglang, kumbaga, later on, I will read to you, pumayat ng gusto. Kaya ang ni Ryan, eventually, ego killed Howard Hughes. As much as the mania and trauma did, if they were ever separate to begin with. There's a story in the book of Acts that I'd like to read to you that would somehow signify about ego eh. In Acts chapter 12 from verse 18, in the morning there was no small commotion among the soldiers as to what had become of Peter. Ang storya prior to that was Peter, di ba, kinulong si Peter, and then merong angel na nagpalaya sa kanya. So nagkagulo-gulo sila doon, bakit nawala si Peter, hindi nila makita. No? Kumbaga, nabuksan lahat ang gate nila. Kumbaga, paano nakatakas itong si Peter? After Herod had a thorough search made for him and did not find him, he cross-examined the guards and ordered that they be executed. Ganong katindi itong si Herod. Then Herod went from Judea, nung pagkatapos yun, to Caesarea and stayed there. Doon muna siya sa lugar na yon. He had been quarreling with the people of Tyre and Sidon. They now joined together and sought an audience with him. After securing the support of Blastus, a trusted personal servant of the king, they asked for peace because they depended on the king's country for their food supply. So parang naayos sila humingi ng kumbaga kaayusan nito mga tao. And then, pagdating ng verse 21, something happened. On the appointed day, Herod, wearing his royal robes, sat on his throne and delivered a public address to the people. Nag-message siya. Sigaw ng mga tao, they shouted, "This is the voice of a God, not of a man." Grabe siguro, sobrang galing, ganda ng message na binigay, yung speech ni Herod during that time. Sabi ng mga tao, boses ng Diyos yan. But immediately, because Herod did not give praise to God, an angel of the Lord struck him down and he was eaten by worms and died. Hindi naman right there and there siya namatay. Sa history would say, something happened to him, nagkasakit siya, and then, namatay siya. Somehow, you will notice, parang ego killed him eh. He did not give praise to God. Harvey Mackay, an American businessman, he said, ego stops you from getting things done and getting people to work with you. That's why I firmly believe that ego and success are not compatible. Hindi mo mapagsasama ang totoong success with ego. Ryan Holiday, you can only see this if you want to see it. It's more attractive and exciting to see the rebel billionaire, the eccentric, the world-renowned, the fame, and think, oh, how I want that. You would not really want that. Di ba, pag tinignan mo siya externally, parang sarap naman ang buhay niya. Parang ang ganda naman ang buhay nila. Parang gusto ko yan. No? Me and my wife are watching a Netflix original entitled The Crown. It's the story of Queen Elizabeth II. It's not complete, na factual na story yon kasi I read something, hindi lahat yun accurate, kumbaga. But somehow, when you look at the lives kasi ng royalty, di ba, nakatira sa palasyo, dami nagsisilbi, kumbaga, kita mo, magdadamit, magbibihis na lang sila, daming alalay, pagbabiyahe sila sa ibang lugar, sa ibang bansa, katakot-takot ng mga bagahe, ang daming nagsisilbi sa kanila. Para bang iniisip mo, ang sarap, gusto ko yung ganyang klase buhay. Kaya lang somehow doon sa palabas na yon, makikita mo rin yung hirap ng being a royal family. Hindi madali mabuhay ng ganoon. Akala lang ng iba sa labas, ang sarap ng buhay na yan. Para bang pinagsisilbihan ka, parang libre lahat. You just don't know how it is to live that way. So parang ganun din kay Howard Hughes. Like so many wealthy people died in an asylum of his own making. He felt little joy. He enjoyed almost nothing of what he had. And most importantly, he wasted so much talent, so much bravery, and so much energy. Dami niya nasayang. Parang doon sa Netflix ng The Crown. No, grabe yung mga pamumuhay, grabe yung politika, grabe yung, ay, talagang, ang hirap ng, parang kang babalanse sa buhay. Ang daming aksaya para kay Howard. Aristotle, the Greek philosopher, said, without virtue, it is hard to bear the results of good fortune suitably. Those who lack virtue become arrogant and wantonly aggressive when they have these other goods. They think less of everyone else and do whatever they please. No, pag walang virtue, pag walang value ang tao, walang tamang value sa buhay, bigyan mo ng karangyaan, iyayabang. Hindi makakayanan. Lalamunin siya ng karangyaan na yan. Do you know of people like that? Have you watched movies of people like that? Whether true story or, maraming taong ganyan. Ryan Holiday continued, and malapit po siyang mag-end dito sa portion na to. No? We can learn from Hughes, because he was so publicly and visibly unable to bear his birthright properly. His endless taste for the spotlight, no matter how unflattering, gives us an opportunity to see our own tendencies, our own struggles with success and luck refracted back through his tumultuous life. No, para bang ang buhay ni Howard, kumbaga sinasabi ni Ryan, dapat opportunity sa atin, makita natin sarili natin sa kanya. His enormous ego in his destructive path through Hollywood, through the defense industry, through Wall Street, through the aviation industry, give us a look inside someone who was repeatedly failed by impulses we all have. Of course, he's far from the only person in history to follow such an arc. The question is, will you follow his trajectory? Kumbaga, susundin din ba natin yung ganoon? Maaaring hindi tayo maging kasing yaman niya para masundan natin yung kabaksakan na ginawa niya. Hindi naman kailangan dahil sa mayaman na lang para tayo bumagsak, kundi ego natin, yung pride natin, whatever small accomplishments we have in life, no? It can destroy us. Pwede tayong magaya sa kanya at sa principle ng pagkabagsak ni Howard. Ryan Holiday wrote, no? As success arrives, like it does for a team that has just won a championship, ego begins to toy with us, our minds, and weaken the will that made us win in the first place. We know that empires always fall, so we must think about why. And why they seem to always collapse from within. Sana maturuan tayo. Sana maging, kumbaga, aral ang mga buhay nila. And we will look at another study in the Bible, in the Hebrew Scriptures, in 2 Chronicles 26 verse 16, from verse 3 first. Uzziah was 16 years old when he became king. And he reigned in Jerusalem 52 years. Isa siya sa matagal ang paghahari. He did what was right in the eyes of the Lord. Verse 4. He sought God during the days of Zechariah, who instructed him in the fear of God. As long as he sought the Lord, God gave him success. Pag binasa natin ang talaan from verse 1 nung chapter 26 na yun, magugulat ka sa accomplishments ni King Uzziah. Batang-bata, pero ang napakaraming accomplishments. Ang biro pa nga parang yung Uzi, galing sa kanya, yung armas, kumbaga itinawag sa kanya, dahil sa kanya. Grabe, from verse 16 to verse 15, you will see the accomplishments of King Uzziah. Reigning for so long, 52 years. Grabe ang accomplishments ito. Pero grabe, di ba? Yung balikan ko lang yung sabi, as long as he sought the Lord, God gave him success. Now let's jump to verse 15, the second portion. His fame spread far and wide, for he was greatly helped until he became powerful. Grabe yung word na until. A 5-letter word na makikita mo kung binabasa mo yan, merong alam mo na merong susunod na istorya eh. Ang ganda nung from verse 1 to verse 15. Ang ganda ng accomplishments hanggang naging powerful siya. So you could just kumbaga feel yung kumbaga yung panibagong sound, kumbaga kung kinikwento man niya ng writer ng Chronicles, makikita mo yung tono, pag-iiba ng tono. Dahil pagdating ng verse 16, di ba sabi, until he became powerful. Verse 16, but after Uzziah became powerful, his pride led to his downfall. He was unfaithful to the Lord his God and entered the temple of the Lord to burn incense on the altar of incense. Hindi siya pwedeng burn eh. Dapat ang mga high priest lang eh. Kaya ni-usurp na niya yung position kasi powerful na siya. Kasi dami niyang accomplishments. Pride, again, led to his downfall. Naging unfaithful na siya sa Lord. Pero sabi kanina, habang faithful siya, habang sumusunod siya sa Panginoon, todo ang success na nangyayari sa kanyang buhay. Ginagabayan siya ni Zechariah, inaalalayan siya nung bata siya. Kaya lang nung tumanda na siya, feeling niya marami na siyang accomplishments, dami na niyang alam, ang galing na niya, ang naging powerful na siya. Then, eto na, kinabaksak na niya. Now let's compare that to the Apostle Paul. Of all the apostles na kumbaga na describe sa Bible, probably none among the apostles can match what Paul had done. At least yung naisulat sa Bible. Sa dami ng accomplishments niya, pagdating ng 2 Corinthians chapter 12, sabi niya, grabe yung, he was brought to the third heaven. Sobrang vision ang naganap sa kanya. Kaya lang, pagdating ng verse 7, itong naging paalala. So to keep me from becoming conceited because of the surpassing greatness of the revelations, a thorn was given me in the flesh, a messenger of Satan to harass me, to keep me from becoming conceited. Sa buhay ni Pablo, ang daming revelations, ang daming ginawa ang Panginoon through him. Kaya lang para hindi siya yumabang, tinanggap niya yung thorn in the flesh, whatever it is. Some commentaries are saying, yung thorn in the flesh niya ay yung lumabo mata niya. Dahil yung blinding light nung siya ay kinatagpo ng Panginoon. So whatever it is, whatever yung thorn in the flesh na yan, yun ang nakapagpanatili kay Apostle Paul to be humble para hindi maging conceited. Kaya, if God gives us success in life, if God would make use of us, let us not become a King Uzziah. Let's become a Paul para hindi tayo maging conceited. Allow natin ang Lord to really bring us down on the ground. Ryan Holiday again. Here we are having accomplished something. After we give ourselves proper credit, ego wants us to think, I am special, I'm better, the rules don't apply to me. Nabi, di ba? Delikado eh. Yun kay Howard Hughes. Yun kay King Uzziah. Allow me to share with you a portion ng video ni Raymond Tang. He was sharing sa TED Talks. He was sharing about yung feeling one time na down siya and meron siya nabasa na libro that brought him back. Let's watch the portion ng video na to ni Raymond Tang. Grabe, no? Anong nagpabalik sa kanya? No? Yung concept ng tubig. Let me just read once again, yung binasa niya tungkol, yung poem regarding water. The supreme goodness is like water. It benefits all things without contention. Indwelling its stay, it it stays grounded. In being, it flows to depths. In expression, it is honest. In confrontation, it stays gentle. In governance, it does not control. In action, it aligns to timing. It is content with its nature and therefore cannot be faulted. Grabe yung ni Raymond Tang, yung lesson na nakuha niya. Ano sabi niya? Anong lesson nakuha niya? First lesson is humility. No? Hindi ko na pinlay yung iba. Kasi ito lang portion na ito kailangan natin. If we think about water flowing in a river, it is always staying low. It doesn't actually draw any attention to itself, nor does it need any reward or recognition. It is humble. Kaya yung water's humility, naturuan siya ng ilang bagay. Ano sabi niya? It taught me that instead of acting like I know what I'm doing or I have all the answers, it's perfectly okay to say, I don't know, I want to learn more, I need your help. No, kaya humility na ituro sa kanya. It also taught me that instead of promoting my glory and success, it is so much more satisfying to promote the success and glory of others. Oh, di ba? Kanina pa natin nadadaanan yan. It taught me that instead of doing things where I can get ahead, it is so much more fulfilling and meaningful to help other people overcome their challenges so they can succeed. Yun ang sinasabi ni Simon Sinek. Yun yung sinasabi ni David Brooks ng Second Mountain. Having that mindset of humility. No, life can become more fun because every day I've discovered new quirks, new ideas, new solutions to problems I didn't know before, all thanks to the ideas and help from others. Humility gives water its power, but I think it gives us the capacity to remain grounded, to be present, to learn from and be transformed by the stories of the people around us. Kumbaga, we don't have a monopoly of learning. We don't have a monopoly na hindi na natin kailangan ng mga tao. Huh? Kaya, where do we stand in that? Huh? Ruled by or ruling? Sabi ni Ryan Holiday. Which are you? Without the right values, success is brief. If we wish to do more than flash, if we wish to last, then it is time to understand how to battle this new form of ego and what values and principles are required in order to beat it. Success is intoxicating, yet to sustain it requires sobriety. Nakakalasing, di ba? Kaya ang daming dapat alalahanin. Sabi niya, we cannot buy into myths we make ourselves or the noise and chatter of the outside world. We must understand that we are a small part of an interconnected universe. Hindi lang tayo. It's not about us. Well, look at what he wrote. There is no limit, no, rather by Ralph Waldo Emerson, there is no limit to what can be accomplished if it doesn't matter who gets the credit. Walang katapusan ang magagawa natin pag hindi natin iniisip, sino ba bida? Marami tayong magagawa. May isang kwento lang. Dalawang church po sa isang lugar po, tawag ng churches na to, Little River Community at saka First Memorial Church. Located po sila, magkalapit lang sila. Meron dalawang youth groups and they're always competing. Paparticipate sila sa softball league, basketball league, and so on and so forth. Parang intense rivals po sila. They would want to outdo each other. One Sunday, following a Bible study on serving others, the youth group at Little River Community Church decided to go out into their community and put their faith into practice. Into action. Sabi ng youth pastor sa kanya, sa kanila, kung mag-inorganize sila, challenge sila, pagsilbihan nila, at huwag aalalahanin nila na ano yung, mga katuruan ni Jesus. Anong mga ginawa ni Jesus, kumbaga. So the youth group from Little River Church fanned out into the neighborhood, started serving. Merong isang grupo, iba-ibang grupo sila, no? Nag-carwash sila, ibang grupo nag-pump ng gas for free sa isang self-service gas station. Another group, no, pumunta sa convalescent home, sa mga matatanda, doon sa mga shut-ins doon, kinantahan nila. And after the time was up, all the ministry returned to the church. At nag-report sila, kinwento nila, and shared what they learned and what made them feel about it, ano? And one of the group na kinikwento nila na isang babae, pinagsilbihan nila, malapit doon sa First Memorial Church nakatira. So, sinabi nila, we mowed grass, raked leaves, and did yard for her. And sabi ng isang estudyante, she was really nice. And after we were through, she invited us in and prayed for us. And then she said, sabi daw nung babae tinulungan nila, you young people from First Memorial Church are always doing such nice things for us old people. Sabi ng pastor, oh no! Akala nila from First Memorial Church kayo? I hope inayos tinama nyo. Sinabi nyo ba sa kanil sa babae na hindi kayo taga First Memorial Church, kundi taga First kumbaga Little River Community Church kayo? Sabi ng isang estudyante, no, we did not. You told us, sabi niya, you told us to do what Jesus would do, didn't you? We decided that Jesus would just keep his mouth shut. Kasi so siguro yun, tatahimik na lang siya. Hindi na niya ikukorek. Sisilbihan niya lang. Ang gumawa po ng story na to, sabi niya, this is a true story. Binago lang nila yung pangalan. It's remarkable because most of us would probably have been quick to let the woman know she was wrong to credit someone else for the work we had done. Di ba? Kung sa atin nagkamali, siguro, hindi, kukorek, hindi, taga-bread of life po kami. Hindi ko kami taga-ibang church, taga-bread of life. Di ba? Minsan parang ganun, parang we want to get the credit. Pero si Jesus hindi. Kaya nga, di ba? Yun ang sabi ni Ralph Waldo Emerson eh. There is no limit to what we can accomplish if we do not care who gets the credit eh. Gaming pwedeng gawin ng Panginoon through us. Kung hindi tayo concerned na mabibigyan ba tayong credit, sisikat ba tayo dyan o hindi. No? Whether we get credit or not, we serve. Glorifying God. No? That's why, finally, the verdict on Howard Hughes is in ego wrecked him. Sinira siya ng ego. A similar judgment awaits us. Ito yung ganda ng libro eh. Hindi lang dinatalaki si Howard Hughes, kundi tayo rin eh. Kasi that person sometimes would picture us eh. A similar judgment awaits us all at some point. Over the course of your own career, you will face the choices that Howard did, that all people do. Whether you build your empire from nothing or inherited it, whether your wealth is financial or merely a cultivated talent, entropy is seeking to destroy it. As you read this, can you handle success? Or will it be the worst thing that ever happened to you? No? Kaya ba natin handlein ang success? Kaya kung titignan natin in a nutshell talaga ang buhay ni Howard, ito pong, meron po nagsulat, hindi nanggaling kay Ryan Holiday ito. All he ever wanted in life was more. He wanted more money, so he parlayed inherited wealth into $1 billion pile of assets. He wanted more fame, so he broke into Hollywood scene and soon became a filmmaker and a star. No? He wanted more sensual pleasure, so he paid handsome sums to indulge his every sexual urge. Kunwari, mga babae, gagawin niyang artista, interview niya, pero sasamantalahin niya. He wanted more thrills, so he designed, built, and piloted the fastest aircraft in the world. He wanted more power, so he secretly dealt political favors so skillfully that 2 U.S. presidents became his pawns. Grabe, sobrang galing mag-manipulate ni Howard. All he ever wanted was more. He was absolutely convinced that more would bring him true satisfaction. Unfortunately, history shows otherwise. He concluded his life emaciated, colorless, sunken chest, fingernails in grotesque inches-long corkscrews. Diba? Parang haba ng kuko, hindi na makapag-ayos. Rotting black teeth, tumors, innumerable needle marks from his drug addiction. Howard Hughes died believing the myth of more. He died a billionaire junkie, insane by all reasonable standards. That's why if you gonna look at the picture, ganapan na po kami. Nung bata po siya, itong picture niya. Ito yung more or less, ito yung picture Nung pong nasira na siya. Nagkukulong na siya sa hotel. Hindi na siya lumalabas. No, yung pagkain, inano na lang sa sahig, kukunin na lang niya kasi nga, grabe na nangyari sa kanya. No? Nung namatay siya, ito pong kwento. He was worth $2.5 billion at his death in 1976. He was the richest man in the US during the time. He owned a private fleet of jets, hotels, and casinos. When asked to claim his body, his nearest relative, a distant cousin, exclaimed, "Is this Mr. Hughes?" He had spent the last 15 years of his life a drug addict, too weak in the end to even administer the shots to himself. His 6'4", taas niya, 6'4", frame had shrunk to 6'1", and he weighed only 90 pounds. Not a single acquaintance or relative mourned his death. The only honor he received was a moment of silence in his Las Vegas casinos. No? Time magazine put it this way: Howard Hughes' death was commemorated in Las Vegas by a minute of silence. Casinos fell silent. Housewives stood uncomfortable, clutching their paper cups full of coins. At the slot machines, the blackjack games paused, and at the crap tables, the stickmen cradled the dice in the crook of their wooden ones. Silence. Then in a pit, boss looked at his watch, leaned forward, and whispered, "Okay, roll the dice." He had his minute. Grabe, 1 minute lang. Kumbaga, binigay na parangal sa kanya nung mamatay siya. How sad, isn't it? How sad to live that kind of life. In the midst of all the successes, supposed successes, external successes, but really an internal failure. Jeremiah 9:23-24. Let me end with this scripture. This is what the Lord says: "Let no wise man boast of his wisdom, nor let the mighty man boast of his might, nor a rich man boast of his riches, but let the one who boast of this, that he understands and knows me, that I am the Lord who exercises mercy, justice, and righteousness on the earth, for I delight in these things, declares the Lord." Wag mo ipagmayabang kayamanan, wag mo ipagmayabang karunungan, ang kalakasan, di ba? Kung meron ka mang ipagmamayabang, ipagmayabang mo ang ginawa ng Panginoon. Nakilala mo ang Diyos. No? Na ikaw ay nagpapasakop sa Panginoon dahil doon nagagalak ang Panginoon. Albert Einstein lastly said, "Try not to become a man of success, but rather to become a man of value." I'd like to end with a video. I believe you know this portion na to. It's a time ng video ito ng bagong laban ni Manny Pacquiao. I just like, kasi humility versus arrogance ito. Nung kakalabanin niya si Keith Thurman. 'Di ba, in interview meron sila press, 'di ba, press conference, so on and so forth. So salita ito si Keith Thurman. So let's just watch and see the attitude of yung tignan yung mukha ni Manny Pacquiao kung ano-anong pinagsasabi ni Keith Thurman.
This little bunny rabbit, the way he hops around in the ring, I never seen. I'm not gonna lose to no bunny rabbit, believe that, okay? So hey man, look. He's not Tupac, but he does a little hip hop, if you feel me. He ain't Tupac, but he does do a little hip hop. He's gonna hip hop, and you don't stop until he gets dropped. You feel me? So, I mean, I love it, man. This is just gonna be a great fight, exciting fight. I'm the youngest, I'm the strongest, I'm the fastest, I'm the hungriest fighter he's ever been in the ring with, man. July 20th, it's the Keith Thurman Show. Thank you for coming.
I never lost to a fighter who's lost 7 times. I have no intentions of losing to Manny Pacquiao. I don't see him winning any way, shape, or form. From the jab, to the straight rights, to the hooks, from the hibbity-hoppy to the left, to the right, to the in and out. He's 40, I'm 30. I mean, I want to show him that this ain't Adrian Broner, my I be about business. I throw these hands. I'm gonna let him go. When he walked out of that ring a week before my fight, he walked out of the ring. He said, "I feel good. I can fight more." I know you can because you didn't get hit in your face. You know what I'm saying? He wasn't in a real fight. Come July 20th, we're gonna see how much Manny Pacquiao is willing to give the sport of boxing. I believe he's giving it all that he has, but we will find out soon.
Grabe. Kaya, humility versus arrogance ang title, kumbaga, nung video na yon nung gumawa nun. It shows the success behind humility. Oh, sige, puro salita ka. Yabang mo na parang, naku, hindi tatagal na isang round si Pacquiao. Oh, tatakbo-takbo yan. Kumbaga, kaya yung iba rin, ng mga boxers na kinutya si Pacquiao, na parang iisipin ni Pacquiao bakit pa siya lumaban. Yung mga tipong mga ganun, si Margarito, ganun din gawa sa kanya. Kaya, yun, ito, yung resulta lang. 40 years old na siya. 30 years old lang si Kit, sabi niya, hindi ako papatalo dito kay Manny Pacquiao. Hindi ako papayag na patalo dito. Hindi ako papayag na patalo sa isang 7-time na loser. Ako wala akong talo. Di ba? Yabang eh. So, ano yung resulta? No? Kaya, asa ka na ngayon? Hindi ka makasalita. So, would you like to write down something regarding that? How about us? So, hindi lang istorya ni Howard Hughes, hindi lang istorya ni King Uzziah, kundi tamang istorya ni Paul the Apostle. How do we respond to success? Naghahanga tayo masenso sa buhay. First mountain lang ba tayo? Or are we longing for the second mountain? And more importantly, are we in the third mountain? Kayo lang po nakakaalam ng sarili nyo kung saan po kayo dyan eh. Nasa first mountain ka pa ba? O nasa second mountain ka na? O napapailalim ka talaga sa third mountain? Sana po maintindihan po natin ito na delikado pong ego, delikado pong success. Kaya hindi masamang masenso, umangat sa buhay, pero hindi tayo nananatili doon. Kailangan natin second, we conquer our ego. Yung isa conquer our mountain, ito conquer our ego. But ultimately, napapasakop ito lahat sa pagpapasakop sa Diyos. Sana po natutuhan natin yan. Tayo po ay manalangin. Panginoon, maraming salamat sa iyong katapatan sa aming buhay. Maraming salamat, Panginoon, O Lord God, na ikaw ang aming Diyos na kinikilala, ikaw ang aming Diyos na pinangahawakan. Salamat, Lord, na katangi-tangi ka sa iyong mga gawa. Salamat, Panginoon, na, Lord God, tutulungan mo po kami sa aming lakbayan. Na huwag pong hayaan ang tagumpay na aming mga nararanasan o mararanasan sa buhay ay makasira sa aming buhay. Salamat, Panginoon, na tutulungan mo po kami, gagabayan mo po kami, ang iyong Espiritu, O Lord God, ang siyang, Panginoon, magkokontrol sa aming buhay. Na hindi po kami magmalaki sa kung ano man accomplishments na aming nagawa sa buhay, ay hindi po dahil sa aming sariling lakas at kabutihan, kundi po dahil lamang sa iyo. Salamat, Panginoon, sa pagtuturo sa araw na ito. Salamat, Panginoon, Lord God, na ayusin mo ang aming buhay at gaganapin mo, O Lord God, ng katotohanan, Lord God, ng kaayusan sa aming buhay. Maraming salamat, O Lord God, na sa darating na linggo na ito, gagabayan mo po kami. Ano bang pong ma-accomplish namin, O Lord God, ibabalik namin sa iyo lahat ng kapurian, ng pasalamat, ng papuri. At Lord, nawa na, Lord God, tutulungan mo po kami sa lahat ng aming lakbayan. Hinahabilin din namin sa iyo, O Lord God, ang mga tithes and offerings. Lord God, ito yung pag-alay, Lord God, ng pananampalataya. Pag-alay ng kababaan sa iyo dahil ikaw, sa iyo nang gagaling ang lahat ng ito. Gamitin mo lamang ito para sa iyong kaluwalhatian. Maraming salamat. Muli ka namin pupurihin at sasambihin at dadakilain. Salamat sa tulong na gagawin mo at ibibigay mo sa bawat isa sa amin, Lord. Salamat sa aming lakbayin, Lord God, in your presence. We honor you and bless you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen and amen. Maraming salamat po sa inyong pagsubaybay. Salamat po, sinamahan niyo po kami muli sa ating streaming na ito. Nawa ng Diyos ang patuloy na umalalay sa inyo pong mga pamumuhay. God bless.